Welcome everyone to my SE Figuarts review of The Batman, the 2022 movie version by Bandai Tamashii Nations, as this is one of the most highly anticipated and successful films of the year so far. And in the past, we've had a collection of live-action Batmans from The Dark Knight to Justice League to the 1989 version. And I've been reading up a lot online and seeing photos myself. I know there's a Medicom Effects one as well as a Mezco version coming out. And a lot of people are excited for those. They do look amazing. But let's see if this SH Figuarts is going to be worth picking up and if it will be the definitive Batman. And I know that Tamashii Nations aren't great with their DC line. It's been 10 months, in fact, since they last released a version of a DC character, and that was the Suicide Squad Harlequin. And since there hasn't been that many DC movies, and I know a lot of them, they don't tend to go back to the old lines, this is the only figure we're going to probably get for another few months. But let's first take a look at the packaging, which is something I always pay attention to. You know, when Tamashii Nations, you spend quite a lot of money on their figures, you do want a nice packaging to leave in the background, or just keeping the box, of course, is very important, at least for me. And this is kind of what I expected, with all the black and red colors to really match the theme of the Batman. We have the titles, the logos, the stickers. One thing I noticed new is Bandai Namco. So I think they somehow brought the rights to Namco. So they've got a new kind of logo here. And then at the front we have a shot of Batman. And I believe this is a movie photo still rather than the figure version. And then we have the title and pictures at the top as well as the bottom. And then on the sides it kind of wraps all the way around, which is what I really like. And we have the logo of the Batman, and it's the same on the other side, but we have a shot of the figure. And then on the back we have the figure in different poses. So we get a really nice backdrop as usual, but it's not just a logo or plain color. There's actually a photo of the city, or Gotham City should I say. And here is the Batman figure inside its packaging. So here is the Batman figure out of his packaging. Now before I begin with the review, I want to say I spotted something when I took the figure out of the box, is that I have a tiny error on this figure. And I believe this is a QC kind of damage, which is the armor has a tiny scratch on the edge, which gives it a kind of dotted look, and it can't seem to rub off. So I'm a bit disappointed considering, you know, how much I pay for SH Figuarts. And it's one of my favorite companies. I normally don't have problems with their figures. Maybe on the odd occasion I have a loose leg or loose arm, but very rarely I have any damage to the paint. And I've done my research on this figure. I know that this piece of armor can be removed. So I believe during production, when they placed it on or removed it, somehow this got a scratch, and I'm not sure why it passed the QC, and they placed it on this figure. I'm just unlucky. So yeah, that's just a minor thing. From afar you can't really see it, but it does kind of bug me that there is like a silver scratch on the edge, even though it's a minor one. So yeah, that's just something I'm disappointed. And now we can actually begin with the actual review. So looking at the proportions, the first impressions of this Batman, I think it looks okay. He seems a bit too thin, considering he's meant to be in this heavy metal armor. I know Tamashii Nations make their figures a lot shorter, slimmer, but I feel that the proportions could be slightly better. I mean, it's not too bad, but you can see that he seems a bit too thin for me. I think Batman needs to be a bit more bulky. I think they've got about 80% of the accuracy to Robert Pattinson. I think the jaw looks okay. He looks a bit calm, which is accurate to some parts of the movie. But I believe if you want this figure in some sort of fighting pose or angry kind of look, then you're definitely not going to get it. So he looks a bit too calm. Maybe he could have a bit more of an aggressive face. That's just my opinion. But other than that, we have the details on the bat knife in the middle. So I think that does look pretty nice. You can see that it's kind of attached in, rather than it just being one piece. I know the figure is actually one piece, but it actually looks like two separate pieces. And then we have the utility belt, which is very unique for this Batman because he has so many different gadgets. Don't forget, this is a detective version. We have the pouches, and I don't believe they're removable. We'll have to test the articulation later on. And one thing you'll definitely notice is the cape. So this is something I don't like about Tomorrow Nations, is when they give us like a hard plastic at the top and then the soft cape at the bottom. They've done that with, I think, the 4 figure for the Age of Ultron, and they've done it with some of the Doctor Strange figures. And this is something that I think a lot of people think looks a bit bad. There is a band on the side, so you can have kind of articulation. I mean, from the front, it doesn't look too bad. But from the back, it just doesn't quite work. So yeah, that's the main problem here. And other than that, I think the proportions just look a bit too slim. So let's test out the movement of this Batman figure. And for Tomorrow Nations, normally they're good with the articulation. But let's see for this Batman, since he does need to be in some sort of fighting pose. So I'm going to test out the head sculpt first. And he can move side to side, no problem. But notice that the collar is a lot higher for this Batman, so be very careful when turning it. And then he can tilt downwards, only slightly. Upwards not too much because of the collar, but you can actually rotate the head 360 if you want. And then it can also tilt side to side. So notice I'm doing this very carefully because I don't want to break anything. And then the next thing is the arms. And obviously we have this hard plastic kind of collar, so it might be a problem moving his arms to the side. So you can see, you can only stretch it up this way, but you should be able to rotate it forwards, which is no problem. And then backwards, although you notice that there's also another shoulder pad inside. So articulation for the arm isn't great so far because of this hard plastic. So probably not a great idea to really maneuver the arm too much. There's rotation on the arm, and I'm pretty sure there's an arm bend as well for the elbows. And you can also rotate the lower half of the arms. And there's also rotation on the hands and also an hinge out and inwards. And then we can test out the body. Side to side, no problem. Should be able to tilt the other way as well, only slightly. And then we have a waist swivel, and I'm pretty sure it can go side to side as well. And we have a crunch forwards and backwards. I mean, this Batman is of course standing a lot of the times. I think it will still look good, but he needs to be in some sort of fighting mode, I believe. Let's test out the utility belt, because I did say I want to focus on that. So he's got plenty of utility belt, which is actually removable. So you can take at least the first one off. Let's see if I can remove the others. You can remove the other types of parts apart from the pouches. So this is something interesting for a Batman figure. Not all of them are removable, but some of them are. And then we have the pouch on the side, which is not removable. And then for the legs, you can see, kick forwards, backwards, no problem. And I'm pretty sure it can stretch wide. You can see that it should have a swivel, but it's probably a bit stiff out of the box. But let's test out the knee bend. Pretty good. The foot does have a kind of side to side turn, also this way, and there's a toe hinge as well. So I kind of have mixed feelings in terms of the articulation because of this cape. But other than that, I think it's kind of standard. I do like how you can take out certain gadgets from his utility belt, which is very unique. So here is the overview shot of all the accessories that this figure comes with. So there are a total of 5 sets of alternate hands, so 10 in total. There's also a unmasked alternate head sculpt, 2 of the grappling launchers for both sides, a adrenaline pen, and I didn't actually know what that was until I read the instruction manual. And then we had the handcuffs, the chest piece, as well as the bat knife. So the first set of alternate hands is the relaxed palm, so this is very standard for the SH Figuarts. The next set of hands is also kind of a relaxed palms, although this one has more of a grapple. And then we have a set of grapple hands which can be used for the adrenaline pen. And here is the adrenaline pen in hand. We also have another set of grapple hands which can be used for both the handcuffs and the bat knife. So here's a closer look at the figure holding onto the handcuffs. And the final set is another pair of grappling hands, this time with the two pointed fingers, and this is used for the grappling launchers. And I also noticed on the two arms there are the actual grappling launchers when not in use attached to the arms, and you can of course remove this when you are using the actual launchers that are included. So I'm going to remove them first, and then we can place in the other launchers that are included. And this is both for the left and right hand. And here are the grappling launchers attached to the figure. Of course, the most memorable scene in the movie was when he escapes from the police station by using one of them. But in the final battle, I believe he uses both. And it would have been a nice touch if they add wire strings to the launchers, although it's not really Bandai style. And going back to the previous grapple hand, which of course is for the bat knife, we have to remove the chest piece. So let's detach it and place the other one in, which doesn't have the QC issue. So it's a nice clean chest piece. And then we can place the bat knife in hand, and then we can create that very iconic moment in the movie. So the only thing you're really missing is the aggressive face for that moment, but other than that, this is a pretty cool pose to have. And the final accessory we can take a look at is the alternate head sculpt. So let's remove the one in the figure. And it seems as though it doesn't really detach the neck properly, so you have to do that again. And then we have the unmasked version of Bruce Wayne with the eye makeup. And to me this looks pretty good. I would say it's even better than the promo photos. And what you can do with this figure, which I'm sure a lot of people will do, is to place the other alternate head sculpt in hand. So it looks as though he's holding on to the cowl when he takes it off. Of course you got to get it in the right angle so you don't see the actual face. And I think with the right posing you can also get an extra look like this, which I think looks pretty nice as well. And one other extra bonus accessory I want to take a look at is, before we took a look at the utility belt, which of course you can remove certain accessories, and I believe this is the flare he uses in the end of the movie, but it's of course still in its pocket, so you can't actually take it out and use it. And it would have been a nice touch if they also included this as one of the accessories. So now let's take a look at the comparisons, starting off with the evolution of the SH Figuarts Batman figures. So spanning over 30 years from left to right, we have Batman 1989, The Dark Knight, Justice League, and the Batman in 2022. And here it is next to the McFarlane Toys version of this Batman, as well as the McFarlane Toys version of the villains Riddler and Penguin, as well as the McFarlane Toys Catwoman and Drifter Bruce Wayne.
And here it is next to some Mafex Justice League figures with the tactical suit Batman and Bruce Wayne.
And to round it off with some Hasbro Marvel Legends civilians with the Spider-Man Retro Peter Parker, and another figure I picked up recently, and that is the Spider-Man Homecoming Peter Parker from the Peter Parker and Ned Lee's 2-pack. And before I give you my summary, here's a little extra where I throw on the unmasked head sculpt on the Mafex Justice League Bruce Wayne. Now the head sculpt doesn't actually quite fit, but I used some blue tack and it seems to do the work. Obviously the eye makeup doesn't quite make sense for this type of attire, but you kind of get the funeral look of Bruce Wayne, and I guess it's better than nothing. So here are my final thoughts on the Batman SH Figuarts. So let's first ignore the QC issue I had and put that to one side and judge this solely on a figure alone. I'm going to start off with the positives and say it has captured the likeness of the Batman, with a well sculpted cowl, the armor, the utility belt. And one thing I must say, in the promo pics as well as the events, the figure looks very light grey, and I believe that was just the lighting. I think the colours are a lot darker in person and accurate to what we see in the film. There's also plenty of options to pose this around with the adrenaline pen, the handcuffs, the grapple launchers, the bat knife and the replacement chest piece to go with it. And the fact that you can remove the parts on the utility belt as well as the grapple launchers gives it an extra option. I also think the unmasked head sculpt is great. The likeness is much better than what we saw in the promo pics. So it's not just with the weapon poses, we can also have this look with the removing of the cowl look. And I think this is very iconic, at least for this Batman. And now we can move on to some things I didn't like. I could say that the figure should be a bit bigger, not oversized, but a bit more bulky in the actual proportions. The cape is not ideal. Not only is it half plastic, half cloth, it does get in the way for the articulation of the arms. And I say this figure needed an extra Batman head sculpt, an aggressive face or some sort of open mouth, especially when he uses the bat knife. I also would prefer them to add the flare, which was a significant moment in the movie. The handcuff is also a nice addition, but I don't remember him really using it. I think maybe after the Penguin car chase, but I don't actually remember seeing him use it. Overall, I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10. It's probably higher than what people expect, but normally I'm a bit more generous to the figures and it's still over average. So I wouldn't say it's the definitive Batman, it's far from it, and I would look forward to seeing what Medicom do with their Mafex, and possibly I would go for the Mezco version as I want something a lot different to this SH Figuarts. And I don't think Tom Machinations would really give us other characters. Maybe they could. A Catwoman or Riddler isn't really out of their range, and possibly a Batcycle as they did with the Dark Knight version. But I'm going to start looking at what Medicom Mafex will do, and of course I'll look to buy the Mezco version as well. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment and subscribe, and head over to my channel to check out my other videos. Stay tuned for more news, reviews and collections, and see you next time.